Hi, my name is Jessica Renfro, and in this video I'm going to take some time to walk you through the professional development opportunity and training module that I developed with Stephanie Boggs. Stephanie and I come from the same school district and coincidentally ended up in the same class, so we figured it'd be kind of neat to collaborate together now that we're in the same building as a united front to kind of help the rest of our staff become a little bit more acclimated and comfortable using some of the different technology pieces that we have available to us. As we go through the video, you'll notice that I have two tabs opened. This first one that I'm starting out on is the Google site that Stephanie and I developed together and created as a means for you, our classmates, to be able to access all of our videos, resources, and student work samples that we kind of collected and developed through the process of our training module. I also have this other tab opened. This is the Google Classroom site that we used as a platform for the staff members that attended our professional development. Google Classroom is something that Stephanie and I both use in both of our classrooms, and something that we really thought was important and something that would be very useful to share with our staff. Unfortunately, due to our privacy settings in the district, we aren't able to share this with you. So in this video, it would be a great opportunity to kind of show you day by day what we did and how we worked together to get this integration piece together for our staff. So to begin, I'm going to start off by showing you our Google site that we developed. This is the one that you're able to kind of click through and navigate so that you can look a little bit further into what we really used and what we were able to create with our staff members. On this home page here, we placed in a Google Classroom Mission Control for Students video. This is just an introductory video to really show some of our staff members how beneficial it can be and some of the great uses for Google Classroom. It was a really nice opener, and it was a nice way to kind of transition into the conversation of Google Classroom and how to use it. Down below, you'll notice that we also have a professional development focus. This was also placed on our Google Classroom for day one. So we have our module outcomes down below, so what we're seeking to do through this professional development, and then we also have our training topic and our NETS standards here. If you click over to the top tab, we had discussion boards throughout our training module. This was just a good way to get feedback from our staff members, and it was also kind of neat to see what kind of perspectives they had on technology already, what kind of experiences they've had already with technology. This was probably one of my most favorite parts of the professional development, was really talking about how to use some of these resources and getting some new ideas and feedback from them. So for our first meeting, our first question was, what technological resource or tool are you most comfortable using in the classroom and why? So here we took screenshots off of our Google Classroom and placed them into this website so that you could look a little bit further. But you'll notice we had 9 complete this and 1 that did not have a chance to do it. The way we set up our training module is we covered a 3-week span, meeting once a week on Tuesdays for about an hour. Now, these meetings were face-to-face, but we did also provide quite a bit of digital and technological resources such as videos and tutorials and things like that to kind of help support our staff members, and we also assigned different assignments that we wanted them to work on at home or at school when they had the opportunity to, so that we could kind of come back and see what issues they ran into or where they were having difficulties so that we could troubleshoot a little bit better. Now, we initially sent out a pre-assessment, which I'm going to click on my assessments here so I can show you it. We initially sent out a pre-assessment to all teachers at the very beginning once we were in our development phase for this training module, just to see what our interest was like for our staff members. We had about 15 people respond to this pre-assessment. Unfortunately, because of the day we chose, most of our staff members, I think it dwindled down to about 10, which was a solid number still for us, I felt. But we had about 10 show up on average weekly. Now, in our first pre-assessment, we just wanted an idea of how they felt in regards to confidence. So if they felt like they were a beginner, an intermediate level, tech savvy, or if they just felt completely lost. We had that question on here. We also asked how frequently they used their one-to-one devices. In our school district, we kind of have a hodgepodge of everything. We have iPads, we have Chromebooks, we have MacBooks. We have a lot, but we don't seem to have a lot of consistency. So this was a great question for us to kind of figure out how they were using it and what they were using. We also wanted to know what grade level they taught, what kind of technological resources they currently implemented and integrated into their classroom. And then we also wanted to figure out where we needed to go in regards to the topics that they were interested in. So we put down a couple options. We put Google Classroom, Google Slides, Google Sites, and Google Forms just as a kind of a jumping off spot for us. After analyzing the results, it was pretty clear that Google Classroom and Google Forms were definitely the most popular and had the most interest. And then finally, we wanted to know just what they were looking to get out of these professional development meetings and these training modules. We kind of knew going in that we were going to have a mix between face-to-face meetings and the LMS kind of approach of having videos and tutorials and having that digital interaction with them. Many of our staff members are a little reluctant when it comes to technology. Not all, but in general, we haven't had any training or professional developments in prior years focusing on some of the really new creative things coming out. So it was really neat to sit down with a lot of our staff members and figure out ways that we could work towards a common goal of integrating these technological resources. So that was our pre-assessment. On our second day at our second meeting, we had another discussion question. This question asked, it said, now that you have the opportunity to play with Google Forms, think of one way that you'd like to use it in your classroom. And this was kind of neat to hear how they personally wanted to go back and use some of their different areas and subjects to kind of tweak these forms to make them useful to themselves. So you can see here we had quite a few responses. They would reply back and forth to each other, just getting familiar, having that digital conversation. Our third discussion question was, now that technology is ever changing, thinking about the trial and error of it, what is your biggest reservation with using technology in the classroom, and what would need to be done in order for you to feel more confident using these tools in the classroom? This was really nice because it was able for us all to share kind of that we all struggle with technology at some point. We're all kind of in the same boat with that. But that was our final discussion question for our training module. On my next tab here, I have all of the videos that Stephanie and I collaborated on together and used within our Google Classroom for our staff members and for the training modules. This was that introductory Google Classroom video that we shared on day one to kind of introduce the idea of Google Classroom. You can see here we tried to make sure that we had our names under the videos we created. That way you know who created what. So Stephanie created a how to join and create classes using Google Classroom. This is something that we did on day one together and introduced. We also pulled a couple other videos that we felt would be useful that we didn't necessarily create, but we still felt like there was a need for it and that it would be kind of supportive for our staff members going through the motions of creating some of these different tools and resources. So we do have a creating quizzes on Google Forms. I also made one as well to fit a little bit more into what we were doing. There's an overview of the new Google Forms. We have grading and returning assignments in Google Classroom by Stephanie. And then we also have how to assign assignments and other tasks to students in your classroom by Stephanie. Stephanie really focused on a lot of the Google Classroom aspects of it. So that was something that she really took charge of and made videos for and found a lot of the resources for. I tried to focus a little bit more on the Google Forms part of it. So a lot of the videos that I have listed here are going to relate to Google Forms for the most part. So I have how to use Google Forms for scheduling appointments and conferences. This was really more of an extension piece after talking about Google Forms. We talked about surveys, we talked about quizzes, and then this is just kind of neat because it includes some add-ons. And that was that extra layer and kind of that extension piece where it could be a little difficult for someone who didn't feel as comfortable, but if they felt pretty advanced and they felt like they were really understanding how to use some of these things, this was a really neat thing to show them with conferences coming up so soon. Here's that video I mentioned before about how to create quizzes using Google Forms. And then finally, how to create surveys using Google Forms was another one I made. Down below here, Stephanie did a video on how to change the background in Google Forms. That way you can make it more appealing to your audience, just a little bit more attractive in general when you're pushing it out to people. So those are all the videos that we created, developed, or found useful or supportive to our staff members throughout this training module. We also have a resources page. And this is really here just to kind of add some variety and just kind of help those that maybe didn't do so well with the videos. I know for some learners, watching the videos can be a little difficult because you're constantly having to pause it and then replay it and rewatch it. So Stephanie and I really wanted to make sure that we had some tutorials that you could physically print out and refer back to, or put into a folder or a binder that you can constantly go back to and have on hand. So we have one here for just notifications for Google Apps for Education. So there's Google Classroom notifications here. There's Google Plus notifications here, how to turn them on, turn them off. It's kind of a neat resource if that's something you're interested in. We also had a Google Classroom cheat sheet, which was really great because this had really wonderful images step by step on what you need to click, where you need to go, what things look like. So this was a really neat cheat sheet for a lot of our staff members. Further down, we also had a Google Forms tutorial, which was just all about creating surveys, creating quizzes, adding titles, questions, themes, backgrounds. Pretty much anything you need to know about Google Forms can be found in this tutorial, which is pretty neat. So we wanted to make sure we had a little bit of a variety between our tutorials and our videos, just so we were able to reach all of our learners, and making sure that we're not overwhelming them, but making sure that they're also able to get what they need in a timely and organized manner. So I showed you the pre-assessment already, but if you scroll a little bit further down on this page, I also have the post-assessment. On this post-assessment, Stephanie and I collaborated trying to figure out what we needed to do to improve our training module for next time. Things that were successful we also wanted mentioned here. So this was kind of a nice piece to see how well our training module was by the end. And for the most part, we had a lot of really positive feedback from staff members. We even received quite a few emails from them thanking us and telling us how useful some of the information was. So that's definitely good news that they're finding it as helpful as we found it. And then finally, my last tab for the Google Sites here are going to be staff member work samples. So on day one, we started working on surveys. So you can see here I have the surveys right inside. So the first one is podcast ideas from students. So they're able to check boxes for things they're interested in. There's also a self-assessment survey. Further down, we have student technology surveys and how did you study for the spelling test surveys. So we talked a lot about different ways that you can incorporate surveys in the classroom. And we really tried to emphasize that this is just a means for you to be as creative as you need to with your content, with your subject, to fit your needs. And it was really neat to see what some of our staff members came up with. So these were just a couple examples that we placed in here for you guys to look over. Further down, we also have content-specific graded forms. These are the forms that we kind of assigned as homework assignments for our staff members, and then we asked them to come back and we showed them how to turn their assignments into quizzes. And you could just see their eyes light up a little bit because we all know that grading is time consuming. And if you can work smarter, not harder, it's always a good thing. So we have a capitalization quiz that someone made, a rocks and mineral quiz that another staff member made, a math multiplying by 5 quiz, and then a spelling quiz. So it was really neat seeing all the different ways they were able to incorporate these into their content areas. So this is our Google Sites website. So everything we've done in our training module, all the resources, videos, work samples can be found here along with discussion questions. Now I'm going to go ahead and walk you through what our face-to-face training meetings were like throughout that 3-week period. So I'm going to click over to my Google Classroom. And Stephanie and I, we decided to break up our Google Classroom into topics. That way it would be very simple for us to go through and show you what we did day by day. So day one, as I mentioned, we had our training topics and net standards labeled and listed. We also had the module outcomes here. The only thing that we didn't seem to mention here was how for our district strategic plan, we were really supporting that because we were able to go to our LPDC committee. I'm on the committee this year, and we were able to bring it up to our assistant superintendent, the idea of allowing our training module to count as contact hours. And that was something that a lot of our staff members were able to take advantage of. And it was definitely a draw for some of them. So our training module did count for contact hours towards professional development, which was really neat and really awesome as well. So scrolling down a little further, We have the welcome video that I mentioned on the other site. So this was just a nice way to kind of transition to Google Classroom and getting the discussion going on it. We also have the videos to support them once they left our meeting. So how to join and create classes in Google Classroom and how to navigate using the menu bar. We did this in class, so we showed them how to do it. We were able to have them enroll into our own class as well. We had them create their own classes to fit their needs. So some of them had only one class, some of them had more than one class. So we were able to have them all set up and walk them through the steps of doing so. But we also had this video here to support them when they actually were doing it on their own the following day. Further down, you'll notice we had our discussion question. I kind of showed you this with the screenshot, but here it is in all of its glory, full size. So you can see we had plenty of responses. It was really nice to see all of the different replies to one another. So it was a really nice collaboration piece. The Ask a Question feature on Google Classroom is really cool, and a lot of our staff members were really interested in it and found it very useful. So it was kind of a neat thing for us to experience with them. We also have how to create Google surveys. On that first day for our training meeting, we did show them how to create Google surveys, and we walked them through step by step how to do this. So that's what this video is, just in case they needed to make further adjustments or in case they needed to make any future surveys. Down below, we also have changing the background in the Google Forms. That way they could dress it up and make it look nice for their students when they were going to push it out to them. This student survey that they were creating, we asked that they used and implemented it into their classroom at some point before the next meeting. That way we could take a look at the results together and kind of go through the process of a Google survey. So down here below is where we had people turn in their survey. You can see we have 2 spots for it, so that's why there's 5 in this one and 5 in this one. It must have been split. But we do have the steps to do this and to turn in the survey. So I showed you some of them on, oops, didn't attach it. I showed you some of them on the site, but in case you'd like to take a further look, let's look at Sandra's here. So how did you study for the spelling test? So this is just a plain, simple survey. We kind of walked through and asked that they did something that they'd be able to use within their content area. So that's that one. And then finally, we also had a video on how to assign students and tasks to your classroom. So that was our final video for day 1. Now, at the conclusion of day 1, we did ask that they go further and create another survey on their own, a content-based specific survey, in which they would have different questions with the goal of having it graded for them. So that was their homework assignment, and we asked that it be due for day 2. So moving forward on to day 2. We started this training module day off with a discussion question. So kind of asking them how they wanted to use Google Forms now that they were able to use it. So I had one person say, I'd like to use Google Forms to extend my science and social studies instructions with some project-based activities that have active links to sites and videos that students must use to answer questions on the form document. So this is also saying, instead of a worksheet that I normally would copy and assign for homework and social studies, I created a Google form. Very convenient, and the kids liked getting the quick feedback. So there's tons of different responses on how they planned on using the Google Forms and how it worked for them in their own classroom. So that was kind of neat to see. Here's where we had them turn in their content-specific forms. So their homework assignment they had to turn in now here to us. And going through, I'll take a look at Brianna's. Multiplying by 5. So you can kind of see here she had a math one, and we were able to work together and turn this guy into a graded survey. So you can see 1 point is right next to it. And that was really one of the biggest draws for Google Forms for many of our staff members, is the fact that they didn't have to grade these forms afterwards. And then just to kind of support this idea of Google quizzes and graded forms, there's a video here that I had for creating Google quizzes in case they needed any kind of refresher or reminder, and then also grading and recording assignments in Google Classroom. So if they did want to use the grading function on Google Classroom, we did put that on here for them so they could take that step further on their own to do so independently. And then finally, our last day for training for face-to-face was day 3. For this one, we knew it was going to be kind of our final meeting, so we tried to make it kind of lighthearted and fun and just a time to kind of reflect back on the different pieces that we've talked about up to that point. So I found a really cute Ellen video introducing kind of how kids react to technology of yesterday. It was just kind of a great way to ease into the training module for our day. So there was different things like the first cell phone and a typewriter and answering machines, things like that. So it was kind of comical to see the difference because technology is ever changing and constantly moving forward. So it was a nice little lesson too. Our final discussion question was what their biggest reservation was with using the technology in the classroom. And this kind of just came down to the issues that technology seems to have with it sometimes. So things like networking issues and connectivity issues seem to be the biggest kind of worry for many of us. And you can see we had 7 people complete that. Many of them felt confident with the technology. Some of them felt a little overwhelmed with creating the new material because it is time consuming, especially initially. But for the most part, we had pretty positive responses for that. And then here's where I placed that kind of extension lesson for if they wanted to do conference signups using Google Forms, now that they felt pretty comfortable with it. On this 3rd day, we also took it a step further. After talking about our Google Forms and surveys and quizzes and Google Classroom and all the neat functions of it, we also decided to show them a little bit more about Google Slides, in which we were able to change the page setup and the dimension, so kind of like changing it from the portrait to the longer version of it as well. We also went through and talked a lot about hyperlinks. So we showed them how to embed videos on Google Slides. We showed them how to hyperlink to different practice sites or hyperlink to different forms if they needed to. So that was kind of extending it and taking it a step further once they actually understood how to use some of these other pieces. And obviously we had our final evaluation. So we had the final course evaluation, just kind of seeing how we did as mentors through this process. What they enjoyed, if we were effective, and what we could do to make it better for next time. So that is pretty much the gist of our training module. As I mentioned, it was over the course of 3 weeks, and we did a mixture between face-to-face instruction and providing them with supportive digital resources such as videos and tutorials. Stephanie and I really tried hard to break up the work. That way she focused a lot on the Google Classroom side of it. I focused a lot on some of the Google Forms, but we worked together hand in hand every step of the way on all of these resources. So it was a really, really neat experience. I think it was really beneficial to our staff members. It was beneficial to Stephanie and I. It was something that we really enjoyed collaborating on and really just kind of sharing the beauty of using some of these technological pieces in the classroom. So if you have any further questions, don't hesitate to ask or comment about it. I hope everyone else had a really successful and beneficial time working on their training modules as well. Thank you.